Hello, and welcome to this episode of PMC Studio, the interview show for Portland Media Center's Studio Workshop. I am Genius Black, your host for this episode. You might recognize me from Political Brew or from the Maine's Black Future podcast. Each episode of this show is an interview with someone doing interesting things in the greater Portland community, while people who want to learn how to use our studio and its equipment get experience taping this very show. Today, we are interviewing Amy Holt, a manager and writer for the nonprofit Road Scholar. How are you doing today, Amy?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing all right, you know?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, glad to have you. So to jump in, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about your current profession.
Sure. Well, I started as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a writer, there are like three options for you. You can try to get lucky and write for TV and film. You can go freelance and write articles about stuff you may or may not care about. You can publish on your own, or you can write in marketing. So yes. I have ended up writing for marketing.
Got it.
But I'm working for a really cool nonprofit that helps older adults travel the world and get an education at the same time. And they've been around for 50 years.
Oh.
And so it's a really cool mission that I believe in. So it's really fun to write about.
That is cool. Very cool. Also, I know that you started as part of the Haymarket Theater in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to
Yeah,
ask about your experience there. And it sounds like you were performing many different tasks there.
Yes. So I started out way back when as an actor. And just like a writer, like as an actor, you can direct, you can run a theater, you can work backstage, and you kind of have to do all those things to make any kind of living. The Haymarket Theater was really cool. It was in an old space, it kind of like at the old port of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
And it was primarily a children's theater. And so we had kids acting like full-time, summer camps, after school, nighttime, and then we also had adult productions. So we did Shakespeare and we did contemporary plays and we had a huge following. We did dance performances. So I acted there and taught there, and I also was their office manager.
All right. Okay. Acting, office manager.
It's
and what else? Yeah, I was going to say, okay, but you got it done.
I got it done.
So back to writing. What has your career as a freelance author been like, and what types of works have you published?
Well, I started out really interested in like the wellness space. So yoga and herbs and natural healing. And so I did a lot of research, and I was writing articles for online magazines like Mind Body Green and Elephant Journal and Mother Earth News.
Okay.
And so after a while, I had all these pieces together, and a friend of mine said, you know, this could probably be a book. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. So I put a bunch of them together and wrote a proposal and sent it off to a bunch of publishing houses. Mm-hmm. And Story Publishing picked it up. And they thought, oh, this will be great. Let's do a book about herbs and yoga and recipes, and it will have 12 chapters, and we'll look at 12 herbs. And so I worked on that. And so in 2015, I published a book with Story Publishing. Okay. So I went from freelance to publishing, and then I no one becomes wealthy on one book. Like, it's not enough, but it's enough to get you other jobs that you might like better than freelance. Sure. And so I've used that to kind of find different jobs in writing afterwards.
I'm curious why you say you can't get wealthy off of one book.
Unless you're Stephen King. You can't get wealthy off one nonfiction book about herbs. I'll just put it that way.
It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Right on. So also I've noticed that for you, a lot of teaching and instructional based jobs in the past, some of them being on the business management side of instructing. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, what made you decide to take that direction when you did?
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because, God, I realize now as I'm talking, I've had a lot of jobs. But I had a yoga studio for a while when I was acting, because it was doing like a bunch of things to make a living. And I decided and so I did a lot of social media and marketing in that space. So I sort of taught myself business in that space. And then afterwards, I took a course in massage therapy. And after I graduated, they're like, well, you've done all these things. Why don't you come back and be faculty and teach business design for wellness professionals? And I was like, I can figure that out. I knew nothing I just figured it out as I went along, and I did it for a few years, and it was really actually rewarding, and I learned as much as I think I taught, I hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's how you do it.
You won't know, but yeah. Okay. And you started off your career in Nebraska, as well as you worked in Massachusetts, and then you decided to come work in Maine.
Yeah. Well, my company is in Massachusetts. It's remote.
Oh, okay.
So I do technically work in Boston, but I work remotely from Maine.
So why'd you relocate? Like, why'd you come to Maine?
Well, my mom was here. So I was in Nebraska with a Shakespeare company. And my dad got sick, and he was on the East Coast. And so I wanted to go to Maine to be closer to him. But as we know, like the job market in Maine is really tough. And so I decided, well, I'll apply to grad school. And if I get in, then I'll have like a job for 2 years and I'll be close to my dad. Yeah. So I did. I applied to UMaine and I got into the master's degree in English. And so I came out and did that writing degree and was able to be here with my family. And then after I graduated, I stayed on and taught for a while, adjunct.
Yeah.
So I taught English for a while. And that was cool, and I really liked that. And so I was like, well, what other adjunct can I get? So then I was at Thomas College in Waterville.
Yep.
And then by then, my brother was here, my sister was here, my mom was here. So I decided to stay.
It made sense to stay.
It did, yeah.
Maine has that effect on people.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so how would you compare the atmosphere of working to Maine to what it was like working in Nebraska?
Okay, so politics aside, it is a very different world. Yeah. Well, the Midwest is like a culture shock. So I grew up mostly in New England, and my dad was from the Midwest, and he wanted one of his children to experience it, and that was me. So I was the oldest, and so I went out there, and it is such a different culture. It's friendlier, but it's also there's just different expectations of people. People settle down a lot younger. And it's not liberal either in social setting or politics. So it's a challenging place, I think, for a New Englander to settle down.
Very different.
Yeah, very different. And so when I had the chance to come back, I was really happy to come back.
Right on. Are there things for you, that you prefer about working in Maine compared to Nebraska?
Yeah. When I first moved to Nebraska, I was popular for the first time in my life because I was the girl from New England and they didn't know anybody from New England.
Yeah.
And they're like, you have a weird accent. You dress weird. You're cool. We like you. And I was like, okay, great. I don't even have to try. But certainly being landlocked is tough.
Yeah.
And
far from home.
Yeah. And being far from your family. And also, if you want to go for a hike in Nebraska, you have to drive like 4 hours to Colorado. If you want to go for a hike in Maine, you can drive a half hour, or you can, there's mountains everywhere. There's a lot more nature. There's not as much emphasis on being out in nature, and there's definitely not a sort of sustainability mindset in Nebraska. So it's harder to kind of be yourself and not be judged in the Midwest, I found. And so coming back to Maine, it was much easier to be myself and to find work that I found really interesting, rather than trying to cobble it together through a bunch of part-time stuff.
Yeah, got you. Something more like home for you.
Yeah, and there's like more arts. Like I have a better chance of being a writer here or being an actor here than I did in Nebraska. Okay.
All right, so I have one last, I'm gonna say a quick question. Hopefully you can give me a quick answer. But I'm curious, in the kind of teaching and instructing of people, give me one of the biggest takeaways you've taken from your work doing that.
I think the greatest thing you learn when you're teaching is how to improv. Because if you can read the room, you know when they're with you and when they're not. And if they're not, you better pivot. And there is no better education in learning how to pivot than being a teacher.
I hear that. I hear that. You better know how to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we're gonna do is move to a quick break, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask you some more questions.
Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right, Amy. So, what led you to taking on a position in terms of marketing communications and project manager at Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens?
Oh yeah, that was such a cool job. So I had been adjunct teaching, and I don't know if you know about adjunct, but it's a year-by-year contract, and so there's no promise that you'll have a job the next year, and it's always part-time, and there's no benefits.
Okay.
And it's really fun, but it's not great. And I was living with my mom because I just moved back and I couldn't afford to get my own place. And so when they advertised for a writer as a full-time job, I thought, how cool to work in Maine in a botanical garden for a nonprofit and to be a writer. Yeah. And so I sent them my book and I sent in the cover letter and I was like, I wrote about herbs. You guys grow herbs. I can work for you. And ended up working there for 7 years.
Right.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was a great job.
Right on. Okay, so working at the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, what were the most notable accomplishments that you had there? Obviously, you got a lot done in 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I know. Well, we started out as like a 2-person marketing team.
Okay.
For, and I think there were 25 full-time people, and we had one building, and it was super tiny, grassroots. And between the two of us, like we grew the social media, and we started a bunch of blogs. And by the time I left, it was a 5-person marketing team, but I was working like 4 jobs in that marketing team. So I was the writer, I was the editor, and I was the project manager for our print, all of the print signs and all of the digital stuff. So I don't know, that getting the word out and being able to like edit pieces for really accomplished botanists and horticulturists was so cool.
Wow, that's cool. Wow, I never got to edit any of those pieces. All right, so switching gears a little bit, I want to know, what led you to getting involved with Rhodes Scholar?
Well, there was no place else for me to go at the gardens. So I had kind of reached the pinnacle of what I could do. The next job above me was...
You rose all the way to the top.
I did. Well, the director of marketing was next. And I had no background in marketing. Okay. Like, I could not figure out how to build a marketing calendar for a year. Like, forget it. That's not my specialty.
I know.
But, so there was no place to go. So I started looking around. And the other thing is, the botanical gardens, as beautiful as they are, we were on location. You had to go into the office. And it's very isolated. It's way up in Booth Bay. And it was post-COVID. I had lived alone. I was ready to be around people. I wanted to move further south. So I was looking for a remote job. And Rhodes Scholar was looking for a writer. They were looking for a marketing writer. They were also a nonprofit. They had a really cool mission, but they were a Boston company. So I got the benefit of like Boston salary, but in Maine and remote. So I was like, this is perfect.
For the win.
So yeah, so I applied and I didn't get it. And I was like, it's such a bummer. Oh, well, I'll keep back to the drawing board. And then 3 weeks later, they called me and they were like, well, our first choice didn't work out. Do you want the job?
That happens sometimes.
It does happen.
Yeah.
And so I did get the job, and my manager was like, you were my first choice. I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me that, even if it's not true. But
it probably was, yeah.
Yeah, but I loved it. I loved it. It's such a great job, and the people and the culture is fabulous.
Real quick, just for the viewers, what is Rhodes Scholar?
Oh, Rhodes Scholar is a nonprofit travel organization that helps older adults experience the world. They have trying to change the way people look at retirement. So life doesn't end at 55, it actually begins in a whole other way. And so this is our 50th anniversary.
Oh.
Started in 1975 with putting people in actual like dorms in off-season universities. And then they expanded to include like world destinations.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's
All right.
very cool.
Just want to let y'all know, So specifically, what types of projects have you been working on as the manager of communications at Rhodes Scholar?
Well, I am the writer on the international catalogs. So we have these huge books, huge, beautiful books that outline all of our international programs. And so I get to write about all the different countries and all the different programs. I get to interview our participants, who are most of them 75 and up. I interviewed a woman who is 82, and she has hiked almost all the national parks. She's coming to Acadia in October. And her favorite thing is to find a playground, get on the swings, and then jump off at the highest level. So like, these participants are amazing. And she told me, she's like, you don't stop moving because you grow old. You grow old because you stop moving. So like, meeting these people has been one of the greatest things about this job.
It's clearly the right people to be meeting.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
It's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
Absolutely. So one question I have then, okay, yes. Who is a favorite, interesting person that you've connected with through the Rhodes Scholars? I mean, or any of your jobs, but we were talking about Rhodes Scholars.
Yeah. Well, definitely that woman. They call her Aunt Mary. I just did an interview with this couple who have been married 50 years. He's from Ethiopia, she's from Japan, and they celebrated their 50th anniversary with Rhodes Scholar in Paris. Oh. And they were just adorable, and they met at an international student lounge in college, and then hit it off. And they were saying people are really surprised that we've been together this long because we're from different cultures, but we have more in common than people from the same city necessarily. And when we asked what their secret was for 50 years, they're like, well, we just compliment each other. Like what he's not good at, I just pick up, and what I'm not good at, he picks up, and we have no expectations. And they just sort of go through life day by day, just really happy to be in each other's company.
I feel like it's easy to draw lessons from witnessing and observing things like that, and just chatting with people for their wisdom, That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool.
A question that pops up as well is, do you think Rhodes Scholar is a very beneficial organization in the communities for the communities in Maine, and if so, why?
Yeah, well, Maine is one of the biggest retirement states in the country, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a company that really keeps people vital and learning. So when they go, say, to Egypt or France or wherever they go, they are getting like a university level education. Like we are getting the best experts and authors from those places, and they come and they teach the participants the entire time. And there is a schedule, and they get backstage access to like really cool museums, and they get to go in their clothes, and they get this like vital learning that is like being in college, but they realize that they have all these options in front of them, and that they don't have to just stay home and do whatever people do in retirement. So I think it keeps people active. And then once they can't travel, we have online multi-day adventures that can still keep them connected to other people, and because isolation is also a big danger in that community.
Yes, isolation is a big danger all across the nation.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm curious how long, whether they're staying in dorms or whatnot, how long are they staying at these locations?
Anywhere from like 5 days. We have to a program that's like 135 days on a cruise ship that goes around the world. So it's anywhere from a week to like 6 months.
I don't know why. I'm just saying at first I was thinking like 3 days here, 3 days there. I mean, you can have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you're talking more like immersion and a kind of educational, experiential visit to a place that's designed to last a bit longer so you can get into it.
Totally.
That's inspiring. And I think that the elders in our communities deserve that, So would you have anything to say to encourage people to Rhodes Scholar as a service? Definitely seems informational, and it's a way to be educated around the world. So how would you encourage people to get involved?
Well, I think one of the things it does really well is it encourages people, so women especially and older people especially are really afraid to travel alone. There are places that it's just not safe to go. And so when you go with an organization like this, everything is taken care of for you.
Yes.
And we have people who don't know what to do after they lose their spouses or their partners.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people who go on these programs and find community and find connection and find other people who have lost spouses or who don't travel or are caretakers. So we have one scholarship program for caregivers. So people who are taking care of their parents or taking care of relatives, and they get burned out. And so we help them find substitutes for the care, and then we give them a scholarship so that they can go on these programs and like reconnect and learn something and meet other people and just have a little bit of respite.
Yeah, right on. No, it does sound awesome, and I thank you for teaching us about yourself as well as Rhodes Scholar. So I'm just gonna say goodbye. That is it for this particular episode of PMC Studio. We're proud of the brave studio workshop participants who have been operating the cameras and directing the show with little or no experience. If you've seen anything that looked off, that's because they are just learning, and so can you. Just visit our website, portlandmedia.org, and choose workshops on the Get Involved drop-down menu, which is at the top of the home page. Also, if you would like to appear as a guest or would like to interview someone for a future workshop show, please contact PMC at portlandmedia.org, Brendan at portlandmedia.org, and that's spelled BRENDON at portlandmedia.org, or Cindy at portlandmedia.org and let us know. I'd like to thank our guest, Amy Holt.
Thank you. Thanks, Genius.
Right on. For joining me and joining you all. And I'd like to thank you for watching. So until next time.